Back in 2014-15, we moved into a new house, and the owner of the house sold it for a low price, being as big as it was. She was so determined and so eager to get out, so we bought it. She can't remember the order. When we moved in, my dog, she only had one eye at the time, got glaucoma in her good eye. It eventually got her surgery to get it removed. Then after that, my sister's boyfriend broke up with her being a dick, and my best friend left me, and my dad started not coming home until 1 or 2 a.m. We found out he was cheating on my mom. Well, during that time, weird things started to happen. Objects moving, doors opening, seeing shadows. I remember my sister telling me that she felt someone pull her down her bed and her closet opening. I remember things falling off my shelves and onto my carpet, but they were all the way on the back of the shelf. That happened to me a couple of times. My mother was on the porch, and she looked through the sliding glass door and saw a silhouette of a tall man in a hat and a coat in my glass door. His face looked like a man from Scream, and a couple of days later she saw him in the neighbor's window. My mom was also sleeping on the couch and heard footsteps. She told me they sounded like church shoes, and they stopped, and she opened her eyes, and no one was there. I remember taking a bath in the master bathroom, and I was thinking, and I saw a man out of the corner of my eye. I looked there, and he was gone. I thought I was imagining things. My sister was at her friend's house, and she saw a man at the end of the street, and she waved at her. She turned to her friend to ask her, "Do you see that?" And he was gone. I also remember being at school and hear someone say my name. I figured out that we were haunted by a shadow man. When I first moved into this house, I slept with my door open, bathroom light on, and the bathroom light reflected on the wall out in the hallway. And for the first 2 weeks of living here, I would see a man's shadow as if he was standing in the bathroom. And later on, my mom would wake up at 3 a.m. coming in my room or calling my phone asking if I was screaming for her. We'd have stuff move on the counters. The other day, a lid flew off the counter, rather slowly, I might add. And one day, we were all coming home from a family dinner, and our attic light was on, and no one had been up there in forever. And I would always hear footsteps up in the attic, too. And now we're moving really soon, so my brother and his friends were up there getting stuff down, and one of our little angel statues was knocked over and broken. It was on the other side of the attic. I call our spirit Fred. I think he's pretty chill. My friends don't like him. He doesn't like my mom's closet. I've learned that a lot. I'm gonna miss him when I move, or he might come with us. So this happened in my room at like 2 or 3 a.m. I was about to fall asleep when I felt something touching my leg. I thought it was just me feeling weird stuff, so I didn't look. After like a minute, I felt something grabbing my leg, so I opened my eyes, and all I saw was a shadow man standing in the doorway. He was very skinny and looked like he was wearing a hat, but it was just a shadow, no face. I called thinking it was my dad for a second, but it didn't respond, so I closed my eyes shut, and when I opened them, it was gone. The next day, I asked my mom if in the past someone died in our house or in my room, and she told me that my grandfather died in my room. Hi. The scariest paranormal thing to happen to me was after my dad died and we buried him. I had sleep paralysis, and he came into my room with his walking cane and sat with me on my bed and told me he was sorry. He left me when I needed him most. He kissed my head and said he will always be with me. I remember him leaving and me going back to sleep to only wake up with his walking cane next to me in my bed. The cane was always in my mom's room on the other side of the house. Hi. I have two true stories to tell you. I've seen 2 ghosts, once as a child of around 9 years old, the other when I was much older at around 24 years old. I think I have a tendency to see stuff and connect, but I'm untrained. The first ghost was when I was in my hometown, where I still live. I went to church, sang in the choir and stuff. It was a busy Saturday afternoon, and I was sauntering after my mother, who was doing the food shop in the local markets. We had a vicar who put the fear of God into us as kids, tall and stern. Well, this particular Saturday I saw him. He seemed to float past me, not saying anything, but continuing on his way. I hurried after my mom to tell her I've seen Peter. Mom looked at me and said a bit shocked, "You can't have. He's dead." I looked at Mom and said, "But he's gone that way," pointing in the other direction. Peter had sadly collapsed and died of a fatal heart attack the week before. My second story comes when I waitressed on tables at a local hotel. We had a silver service meeting with doctors and agents who came. I was upstairs in a room known as the Derwent Room. I hated that room, especially one side. No explanation, just hated it. Felt like I was being watched, and I couldn't turn my back to the room because I had an overwhelming fear that something was going to get you. This particular evening, I will say I was ill with tonsillitis. I had a temp sky high and felt like a crap warmed up. Skeptics would say, even me, that I had some sort of hallucination. That said, I know what I saw. I was clearing tables off after the meeting, and I felt really poorly. I turned to my right and saw her. She was a girl about 19 years old in a maid's uniform. She wore a long beige dress with a mop cap. Think Victorian times in England. Her hair was in ringlets to her shoulders, and she stood with her hands crossed in front of her with her head bowed. Absolutely petrified, I ran out of the room and downstairs towards reception where my boss was standing. She took one look at me and said, "Are you alright, love? You look like you've seen a ghost." I must have looked like I was going to pass out because she made me sit down and ordered another staff member to bring a cup of tea. I was then sent home. To this day, I remember both incidents in great detail. So when I was like 3 or 4, I was living in a house in West Virginia that we built. So around that age, I would sleep in my parents' bed. So one night, I started to hear stuff down our hall, so I couldn't go to bed. And do you know the saying that little kids can see paranormal things? Well, I did. As I peeked my head out from under the covers, I always saw white shadows walk past into my sister's room. Then a couple weeks or months later, me and my sister were having a sleepover with my other 2 sisters and our friend. We were in my sister's room watching movies. Then all of a sudden the door started to shake and then it wouldn't stop. And it kept doing it until it stopped completely. Then the door handle started to turn. We were all scared to death. Then the door opened and no one was there. After that, like a year later, we moved out. While we were checking to see if we got everything, then me and my sister went into her room and closed the door because we wanted to look under it. As we were looking under, we both saw a rocking chair rocking all by itself. But when we opened the door, nothing was there. We haven't been to that house ever since, and our parents don't really believe us. It started when Sam and Colby announced their Snapchat series. So it all started after they announced the series on Instagram. This was also during their break anyway. I couldn't believe that they were actually coming to Pennsylvania to do the series because of the email I had sent them a month prior to them announcing it and everything like that. Anyway, I was chilling, watching YouTube or whatever. And out of nowhere, I get sucked into a place that looks like a dream, but it wasn't, because I was awake and I was in Centrila where they were filming. And I see them both laying on the ground dead from carbon monoxide poisoning because they didn't wear masks. I literally fell to my knees crying, yelling at them to wake up. I was laying on top of their bodies, crying my eyes out, and afterwards everything was fine. But I had tears running down my face, but then afterwards, every time I closed my eyes, I'd see the same thing over and over, but then it stopped after a while. I was cleaning my room, and as soon as my mom walked out, the books fell off my shelf. Just the top one though. It was weird. So me and my friend group used to consist of 5 people. Allison, Jillian, Callan, me, and Lily. This was about 3 years ago, so I was 10 along with Lily, Allison, and Jillian. We're 11, and Callan was about to turn 10. We were dancing and playing around like little kids in Callan's room. And we were home alone except for her older sister that was 16. All of a sudden, all of the lights in the house except for the TV in the family room that was static. I remember we were confused because Callan's sister was watching a movie in there, so Lily and I decided to go and investigate. That's where we saw Callan's sister in the ground, unconscious. Lily and I ran back in Callan's room, and then there was a knock at Callan's bedroom door. It wasn't a soft knock, it was a strong and demanding one. One of us peeked through the door handle and we saw a tall man in an all-black suit. We decided to climb out the window and we ran 3 or 4 blocks to my house. We got to my house and that's when we noticed Lily was gone. We told my parents and they thought we were playing games. So they went over there and Lily and Callan's sister weren't there. They called the cops and we never saw Lily or Callan's older sister again. Hey, so I saw your tweet about sharing scary stories, so here's mine. So me and my sister were hanging out in my room. We hear the doorknob shake, then it opens, and the door just flung all the way open. And me and my sister thought it was my mom, but my mom was downstairs the whole time. My mom thought that we hadn't shut the door all the way, but then how did the doorknob shake then?